Welcome to Crochet Along with Miss Carol from the Bloomingdale Public Library. I'm Miss Carol, and today we are going to learn how to crochet one of the most iconic patterns in crochet, which is the granny square. I have a sample of a granny square right here. This granny square has 5 rounds. And today we are going to learn how to crochet a 5-round granny square and then how to hook them together to make a pillow. The materials you will need will be your yarn, of course. I have used 2 colors of yarn. I used teal, which is our library's standard color, as well as white. A hook. This again is my favorite H hook. You'll need a darning needle. Always have your pair of scissors handy. And you're going to need, to finish the project, you're going to need a pillow form. Now, I have a pillow form that I purchased online, I think, from Joann's, one of the craft stores. You can get them at any craft store. You can probably pick them up at Walmart or any store that sells craft supplies. Or you can look around your home, ask your grown-ups if there's any throw pillows that are about 18 inches square that need a new cover and recover that. Or go down to a thrift store and see if you can find some old throw pillows that you can take the old covers off and put your crocheted covers on. So there's lots of ways that you can find a pillow form to put on your crocheted pillow cover. So let's get started. All right. We're going to start. I'm going to use the white yarn to show you how to make a granny square. You're going to make 4 granny squares in each color, and then you're going to make 1 granny square where you change colors each round, and I'll show you how to do that as well. The skills that you're going to need in order to complete this project will be the chain stitch, the slip stitch, the double crochet. And that's all you need. So we're going to start by chaining 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to slip stitch in the first stitch that I made, or 4 chains away from your hook. And then I'm going to crochet or chain 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make a cluster of double crochet. That means that I'm going to make 3 double crochets that are close together. My chain 3 counts as my first double crochet. So then I go, pull my little tail out of the way there. 2, 3. I want my granny square to be a square, so I'm going to do 4 of those clusters. But I'm going to chain 3 between each cluster to give me a nice corner. 1, 2, 3. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here's my 4th cluster. 1, 2, 3, and then I need my last corner chain. 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top chain of my beginning chain 3. Slip stitch. All right, I am ready to do my second round. This time I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This will give me the last double crochet on my previous cluster, which I'm going to end with actually, plus a chain 1. And then I'm going to do a cluster, 1, 2, 3, and that is in that chain 3 space. This is my corner, so I'm going to chain 3 again, and then I'm going to cluster again in that same chain 3 space. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now I'm going to go over to my next corner. I just want to chain 1 on my sides. And then I'm going to do a cluster here. 1, 2, 3. My corner chain with 3 chains. And then cluster into that same space. 1, 2, 3. Single chain for my side. Then I'm going to do my clusters in the corner again. 1, 2, 3. My corner space. 1, 2, 3. My 1 chain for my side, and then I'm going to do that last corner. 1, 2, 3. 3 chains. 1, 2, 3. Oops. Now, we're back to where I began. And remember that we did that chain 3 at the very beginning? So I'm going to do a cluster, but I'm going to do 1, 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain of that first chain 4, which gives me my 3rd double crochet and a chain 1 there in my side. To start my next round, I'm going to chain 3. This is going to be the first double crochet in my next cluster. I'm then going to double crochet into that chain 1 space. So there I have a cluster of 3, which includes that chain 3 that I started. Chain 1, because this is a side. And then I'm going to create my corner, cluster. 1, 2. Keep getting over to the side of my screen there. 3, my corner space, so I have 3 chains. And I'm going to cluster in that corner again. Chain 1. Now I'm going to do my cluster here in my side. And you see, we're going to add a cluster per side for each round that we do. Chain 1, come back to the corner. Okay, cluster, chain 3 for my corner space. myself more yarn off my ball, which isn't cooperating with me today. So there's, see how that makes a nice corner. I chained one, do my side cluster, chain one, then I'm going to cluster in my corner. Remember, each corner gets 2 clusters with a chain 3 in the middle to make that nice square corner for you. 1, 2, 3, and then another cluster in that same space. And then the side. Then another chain. And here I'm back to the corner. One, two, three, then my cluster. And then I'm back. I need to chain 1 for my chain space, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 that started my first cluster. Okay, let's take a look at what we have. So let me get this little piece of yarn out of the way here. Stick it through to the other side. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3 rounds, and you can always count where you are. Find your center that has those 4 clusters together, and then count down the diagonal out 1, 2, 3 rounds. I said we wanted to do a 5-round granny square, so we need to do 2 more rounds. I am starting here with a cluster right here, so I'm going to do 4, 2, 3, 4 chains. That gives me my double crochet, which is going to be the last double crochet on my last cluster on this round, plus my chain 1, and then I'm going to cluster into the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, we're going to double cluster in the corners. Remember to do your 3 chains in the corners and do that other cluster in that same space. All right, you have got this part down. You go ahead and finish round 4. I'll go ahead and finish round 4, and then I'll show you how to start round 5, which was just like round 3. See you in a minute. I'm at the end of round 4. I did my 2 double crochet, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of that 4 chain that I did at the beginning of this round. That gives me my last cluster. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, double crochet into that first chain 1 space twice. That gives me, including the chain 3, it gives me my 3 double crochet cluster. Chain 1, then I do another cluster in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1, double cluster in my corner, 3 chains for my corner, chain 3 space. Chain 1, and then 1 cluster in each of the 1, 2, 3 chain 1 spaces on each side, 2 clusters on the corner with chain 3 in between, and then when we get around to the other side, we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 that we started with. So I'll see you there. I finished row 5. I slip stitched into the top of that chain 3 that I started the row with. I'm finished with this square, so I'm going to finish this off and cut my yarn. Remembering to give myself plenty of yarn because I want to make sure that my ends are well tucked in and tied off so they don't come unraveled. One of the first Granny Square projects I made a blanket for my son, and now I'm doing a lot of fix-it because I hadn't given myself enough yarn to tie off each Granny Square, and they're starting to come apart after they've been washed several times. So make sure that you do a good job tying off your ends. So I'm using my darning needle. I'm starting with the inside there, and this one is a good knot because it was the starting one, so I'm just running it under one direction, and then I'm going to go ahead and snip that close so that it doesn't leave a dangling piece of yarn there. To do the outside one, if you cut it too close or if you don't tie it off well, that slip stitch that you tied off with could come undone and your granny square will come apart. We don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and weave my way back. One full granny square. One more stitch. And then forward up to my knot. And then back again. So 3's the charm. There we go. Now, that should take years to come unwoven. All right, so we have one white granny square. Let me show you how to make your granny square that is going to change colors. So I'm going to start the same way. This one I'm going to start with the white again. You can start with either one of the colors that you want. You'll have 3 rows of one color and 3 rows of another. 1, 2, 3, 4, just like we started before. Slip stitch 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do 4 clusters with chain 3s in between to create my corners. One, two, whoops, 3, cluster 2, there's my 3 double crochets, 3 chains, 3 double crochets, 3 chains, 3 double crochets again, 3 chains, and then slip stitch into the top to finish that round. And we're going to go ahead and finish off that color. Pull it through the slip stitch, a second slip stitch, pull it tight, and give yourself plenty of yarn that you can use to tie in those ends when you get done. So I have a small square of white, and this is where I began. I'm going to grab my turquoise. I'm going to move my white out of my basket and put my turquoise in so it doesn't run away from me. I'm going to make a slip knot to start. Put it on my hook. Then I'm going to put a slip stitch right here where my knot is, where I left off the last, to fasten this color on. And then I'm going to do just like I would have done if I would have gone on to row 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. Now, you can see here that I've got some tangle of yarn. That's just, you just have to kind of move them out of your way and keep working. Single, and corners again. So I'm doing my colored square, or my multicolored square, the same way as I did my other square. I'm just changing colors. And I use that slip stitch to join it and do the same chains that I would on that row, just like I did with my one color square. And again, you finish it off the same way you did after you get to row 5. Oops, 3. Always check yourself and make sure you're doing the right amount of chains there in the corners. It'll make your square lopsided if you do a chain 1 in a corner instead of a chain 3. And I know that from experience. Two, and then 1, 2, 3, slip stitch into the 3rd chain on that starting chain, or on my first chain there. Slip stitch, and then another slip stitch to finish off. I'll give myself lots of yarn so that it doesn't come apart after I get it all sewn together. So there, I have white in the middle. I could continue this by slip stitching right here at that knot, and then doing my cluster using white again, doing my cluster in the middle, 2 in my corners, cluster in the middle, 2 in the corners, and just continuing on for 5 rows so that I would have white, turquoise, white, turquoise, white. We are ready to start putting together our pillow after you get all of those done. Remember, you want 4 of one color. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I had made an extra one to show you. 1 of my multicolor one, and then 4 of the other color. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to lay these out here. Hopefully I have room on my table that I'm working on. in the pattern that we want it to be in. And I have put that in the written pattern, which you can download off of our website. Go to the programs and then down to youth program handouts and crochet along with Miss Carol, and it'll show you the granny square pillow, and there's a diagram of how to lay out your squares. So I'm going to start with the one in the middle. I'm going to put my turquoise ones on the side. You can choose to do yours either any way you want. I'm going to put my whites in the corner, and then I'm going to stitch them together. So let me see if I can adjust my camera a little bit so you can see. What's going to move that out of the way. Here we go. So there you can see how that lays out. I'm going to start by sewing first my 3 strips together. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to sew my seams from corner to corner and from corner to corner. And then when I have that done, I'll sew these strips from corner to far corner and corner to far corner. So to start with, first of all, and you can use whichever color yarn you want of the 2 yarns, because you're stitching alternate colors together in any case. Where are my scissors? Give myself quite a bit of yarn to work with. Snip it off. Thread my needle. Okay, so I'm going to take my 2 squares that I want to sew together, and I'm going to match them up. I'm going to start in that middle chain on the corner. I can start on any corner, it doesn't matter. I want to grab my V at the top. Okay, here we go. Whoops, I had it up there so I could see it with my old eyes. And then the V at the bottom. Just like that. Just like that. Now I'm going to pull this through, and I'm going to do a simple overhand knot just to hold that in place, but give myself plenty again to weave in when I'm all done. And then I'm going to do just a simple stitch all the way down. You can also crochet these together if you would like. Today I'm going to do the sewing it together instead of crocheting, but you could do a slip stitch or a single crochet through both sides in order to join those, and then that gives another little texture to your pillow top. So, and yes, you can see the white stitching on the turquoise, but that's okay. It gives it character. All right, you go ahead and enjoy your stitching there. I will get everything stitched together. I'm going to go ahead and stitch all of my rows together, and we'll come back together and show you how that looks before we start stitching the rows themselves together. I have finished sewing all 3 of my strips together, and I wove in all the ends so that I don't have any ends to work with, to deal with while I am sewing the next edges. Now, as I sewed, this edge, this side looks neat and clean. This side is where I worked in my edges. So this is the back. And I wanted to make sure that I kept the rough edges all on the same side so that I would definitely have a back of my fabric and a front of my fabric. So as we continue to work, I want to make sure that as I'm sewing these together, I'm putting my front sides together. So my fronts are up. I'm going to take my top piece here and lay it so my front sides are together. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sew down this whole line just like I did the short sides. And then I will open this up. That'll be sewn together. I will put these front sides together and sew from corner here to corner there so that I have one big square. You don't need to watch me do that because you already had all that practice sewing in these small seams. So you work on your long seams, I'll work on my long seams, and then I'll show you the back of my my piece, my pillow, and we'll work on putting those together so that we can put it on our pillow form. So I have finished sewing my pieces together. I have my piece laying with the wrong side up right now. I have decided for my back of my pillow to just do one big granny square. And so when I got to my round 5, I just kept going and adding one cluster per side until I got to 15 rounds, which is the same size as my other squares. Now you see, they're not exactly the same size. So what I've decided to do is I am going to crochet a half double crochet edge around my big granny square. I'm going to do that in the contrasting color. That'll give it some contrast. And I will crochet 3 times in each of the corner chains so that I still have a nice corner on that. That should give me an edge so that it'll be just about the right size. And when I lay my pillow on here, I think I'm going to have a hard time. So that'll give me a little bit extra. I might need to go around twice. But you go ahead and measure. Your pillow might be a little smaller than mine. It might not be as fluffy in the middle, which makes it not as wide across here. Decide for yourself what yours needs. But that's what I'm going to do for mine. So I'm going to get my turquoise out, and I'm going to put a slip stitch in. I'm going to join. I want to make I'm checking to see. I don't think there's any difference here. So I'm going to join right here where my last knot was. I'm going to join with a slip stitch. Chain 2, and then in the next stitch, I'm going to do a half double crochet, and I'm going to do that all the way around. And like I said, I'm going to do 3 stitches in each of my corner chains, the second chain in that corner chain, to give myself some nice corners to the border that I'm adding as well. So I've added that edging of a half double crochet around the excess, and that makes it a little more even. I think I needed that little extra because this was one continuous granny square where these had the little extra of being sewn together. So that makes that work out just fine. So what I want to do now is I want to crochet around the edges of my pillow cover, and I'm going to do a single crochet. I have connected up here my edging with a slip stitch. I'm going to give myself a 1 chain turning chain, and then I am going to want to make sure that I'm doing the same thing here. I want to make sure these match up so that I'm going to crochet into the first double crochet on that cluster, and then I can just go ahead and do a single crochet. Remember, when we crochet things together, I go through both thicknesses and just do my single crochet. Just like that. I'm going to work that single crochet down around one side, 2 sides, 3 sides. I'm going to stop halfway here so that I have this corner open that I can insert my pillow. So you go ahead and do that on yours, and then I'll show you how to finish it off. Hi. So this is the completed pillow. When we left last, we were working on crocheting around the outside, and I told you that I was going to crochet around half of my pillow, or more than half of my pillow, and then put the pillow form inside my pillow, and then I continued crocheting around the rest of it and tied off when I got back to my starting point and wove in my ends. And then I have the completed pillow. So I hope that you enjoyed this project and that you have a pillow that you can enjoy or give as a gift to somebody. And join us next time on Crochet Along with Miss Carol.